plus 8.
There's 4. There's 1.
9. 13. 7. We need 3.
13.
Who's right there?
3.
There's 5.
1,
5.
3,
6.
13.
5,
13.
6,
We need 7.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11,
Yeah.
12, 13.
Yep, what's the name?
Okay, sneak back over here and grab this. That took you about 25 seconds.
Not even. Quit capping.
But why was it so easy to reorganize?
Because there's numbers.
And lines.
Okay,
And the
But-
lines.
the lines are critical. Oftentimes I get students that'll want to number them, and if you did the same numbers going this way, now it's very clear. I'm kind of a 2-line and an angle line type of a person. I don't care what your methodology is, but you can very easily see, you can't see this 3 all that well, but 1, 2, 3, 4, well, I can see that they're not in the right order because my line isn't lined up. But that's what I'm getting at. You, again, I'm not gonna nitpick and say, here you have to do this or you have to do that in your pre-gluing setup. I did this previously, excuse me for a sec. I did this previously, and what I did is I dry fitted, okay? So however you wanna go about it, just apply pressure and dry fit. If you get any voids that are really bad between different pieces, you just kind of have to maybe push really hard and say, is that gonna close up with some clamping pressure or not? And that's gonna dictate whether, if it's right here and I got a void in between these pieces, well, now I need to assess, I can't make it completely, error proof. You have to just assess, well, is there something with this face or something with this face, or do I just need to take them both back to the joiner and joint this face and this face to get them to mate up nice together, how they're supposed to, okay? You have to ensure that all of your pieces, I have 13, as you just saw, you have to ensure that you have enough pieces to get to 10 1/4 wide. This is on your procedure sheet, but 10 1/4 is my magic number, okay? I'm gonna tell you that if you are above 10 3/4 to 11, you're too wide. Then take a piece out. Like, if mine was reading 11, okay, so right now I'm at 10 1/2, but if I was reading 11, and I just removed one of my narrower, thinner pieces, that dropped me from 10 1/2 to 9 7/8, so that lost me 5/8. So if I was at 11, that would have put me at 10 3/8. That would have been enough. Does that make sense? So you just, it's not like I need to check every single person's in here. If you really have a question, ask. By all means, ask. But for the most part, you're big boys and girls, and you can solve problems, and you can assess, like, hey, how do they fit? And do I need to add a piece, subtract a piece? I talked about it a little bit yesterday. Some people might like to do patterns. Other people, like myself, I'm more of I want it random looking, okay? I don't like where it's, 2 lights and a dark, 2 lights and a dark, 2 lights and a dark. To me, that looks cheesy, a little checkerboardy. In the right applications, it looks sharp. But on this little cutting board, this is just my opinion. You are entitled to your own. If you decide that you want to do a certain pattern, by all means do a certain pattern. So, up to now, what I've done previously is I've dry fit these, I've double checked them. If you have any discrepancies between pieces, now's the time, now is your time to really look at it and say, okay, is it gonna go together with clamping pressure? I can see between my 8 and my 9, I'm getting a slight void. Like one of these probably isn't perfectly true, quite to the, level of fidelity that maybe I like. But for the most part, I can get that with clamping pressure. It's gonna do its thing. So I'm gonna grab these like this. You're gonna bring that, if you would, please. Over here. Try to gather yourselves around so that you can see what we got. Okay. I recommend 3 clamps. And part of that is, well, part of it is kind of the design that I want clamps on the bottom and top of most things that I clamp up. When I had you in middle school and you did just those little teensy like cheese slicers, those 2 clamps on the bottom, because it was only 5-6 inches wide, not a big deal. But now that we're getting to be 10 inches wide, if I apply pressure on the bottom, I always tell students that it's kind of like a drawbridge, that when I apply that pressure on the bottom, there's nothing stopping that center from sliding up. So if I'm cranking this tight, a lot of times these pieces will actually want to raise up off the clamps and they'll get a crown to them. You don't want that. You want nice and straight and flat. Does anybody see any issues with this?
It's not lined up.
What's not lined up?
The lines and everything.
What do you mean? Like, like this, you want them perfect?
Yes.
We don't care. Good question. Good point.
The clamps have to go
But-
all the way to
Ladies and gentlemen, how long is this right now? How long is each individual piece?
a little less than what I'm putting.
How long is this piece? How long? 15 inches. Your cutting board's gonna end at 14. Okay? So right now we're 1 inch long. So you're gonna cross cut this, you're gonna cross cut this, we're gonna machine everything. So right now we are like back in that stage of a rough piece, like what we started with our maple and walnut pieces. So yeah, if I'm off a tick, it doesn't matter. If my ends aren't perfectly flat and flush, it doesn't matter. What I thought that somebody might say is like, this piece right here is a hair bit thin. We had a couple instances in class that people ripped their pieces a little narrow. That's okay. They're still thick enough. I looked at them, they're still thick enough for what you're doing. That's that. All right, before to kind of try to speed this up, I'm going like this, and I like to put my pieces away from me. It's personal preference. You might be opposite. It makes no difference to me. If you remember in middle school, I probably told you the same thing that I'm telling you now. Don't put glue on this. Don't glue it to this, because otherwise you're gonna have to smash it off with a hammer tomorrow. You see on here that I wrote Titebond 2. You watch me fill it up out of Titebond 2. Titebond is a name brand of a glue. There's different name brands of glue. We're not gonna get into which one's the best or worst or whatever. But Titebond 2 is water resistant, okay? It's not. You can't use it somewhere that it's submerged underwater, but it's water resistant. This thing, hopefully you're gonna wash it at some point in its future, so it should be the water resistant glue. If you use the regular Titebond stuff, that's not as water resistant and it could deteriorate with water. You may wanna work in partners. I'll just do this by myself quick. I'll run some glue on a bunch of them. And here's what I'm looking for. You want to smear that glue around. Right now, the clock just started. I have 5 minutes. I have 5 minutes from the second that I put glue on here till I want that thing clamped. That's my clamping window for most Titebond products. Not to say that they're all like that, but I know that this stuff, I have a 5 minute window. So immediately, I put it on there and I go like that. Now, I'm gonna hit on this right now. You don't want your glue so thick that you can't see through it like that. But we also don't want the glue so thin like that, that it's like super transparent. You want it somewhere in the middle, okay? And I'm gonna explain that. That's always when it gets all messy. Yeah. Now, I want to cover this whole surface. And it's critical that you cover the whole surface because this glue will not necessarily travel around and get into every nook and cranny and void if you don't cover almost every surface that you possibly can at this point in the game. Make sense? You notice that I just got some glue on that top edge. Does that matter? Nope. You are going to plane and sand and machine these faces up at a later date, particularly tomorrow, beginning tomorrow and thereafter, and we'll go from there. So, questions on anything thus far? Proper fit up and prep before this is critical. If you get a little excess glue, it's easy to take that and smear it onto the next piece. If you're a little bit light, don't be scared to add a little more. Do you notice how much glue I'm dropping all over the ground? You see all the glue that's, you know, squirting out all over the floor and all over everywhere? Yes or no? No? Yes? Okay. That's what this should look like. This should not look like a 5-year-old that's eating glue over here in the corner. Got it? Make sense? You're gonna have some seep outs like this. If you can, just smear it, wipe it onto a face, put it where it needs to be. Anybody keeping an eye on the clock? How close am I?
It's 11.
Yeah, but when did it start? I don't have any idea when I started. I think I'm still kind of within that window. So, what I wanted to point out is I'm doing this by myself. Very easily I could grab someone else and partner up with this and work together, and it would cut my time probably by a third, because now if I could have number 9 and then somebody else could be doing 10 and 11 or so on, I'm just kind of partially proving a point that you don't need to twiddle your thumbs over here and say, well, this person won't help me, so now I don't know what to do. You can do it yourself. Make sense? Questions? Nothing to add? No comments? People are at this point right now. You are ready to glue pretty much today.
I just have a couple more pieces to.
Okay. Now, if you're getting a lot of seep out like I'm getting here, just a little bit here and there, I try to just touch them up because I don't want a big garbly mess of glue all over the place. I'd rather have it in between my joints. The reason why I spread it around the whole surface is I want a full bond on everything. With this class, I don't usually actually break apart a piece, but I can show you the video. I'll try and email it out to everybody that I took 2 pieces, glued them together, and then I smashed them apart. And when I smash them apart, you'll see that they don't break on the glue joint. If done properly, your glue joint should be stronger than the wood. So, what I do is I just kind of snug these up first and foremost and make sure that they're down tight to my bar clamps down on the bottom. Every once in a while you'll see it want to jump, so now just loosen it and snug it again. Loosen it, snug it again. Now, snug and snug. Then I take a third clamp like this. Snug that one and even go a little more than snug. Then I'll come to this one and I'll give it a little more. Then I'll come to this one and give it a little more. And then it's kind of like tightening lug nuts on a tire, okay, or on a wheel, that you're kind of going across. And there's not an exact rotation where you have to go wherever. I just go a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. Now, I've heard the argument from other people in the past and from you know, different publications and things that I've read, you can apply so much pressure to these that you'll actually squeeze the glue back out of your joint, and then you have a weak joint because you've taken all the glue and you've squeezed it out. There's a fine line. You want good ample pressure to hold it, but you don't want it so tight that it's gonna squeeze all that glue out. So right there, I'm pretty solid. Right here, I'm solid. I like that. I like that. I'm pretty happy all the way around. Last but not least, what do?
Date and time.
Date and time. So today is the 10th. So I'm gonna put DJ, my initials, I can put my name, I can put whatever. I'm gonna put 10/10. And what time do we got?
11:04.
So I'm just gonna write 11 a.m. on it. Okay, just round it off to the nearest 15 minutes or whatever. Okay, so anybody that walks up here is gonna be able to see that person glued it at 11 o'clock on this date. So now, I usually tell everybody give it about an hour and a half. Technically, it's a half hour. For sure, we leave them on for at least an hour. So nobody would touch these clamps and take these clamps off of this piece till at least about noon, maybe 1 o'clock. Does that make sense? So we want to make sure that it's got ample room or ample time to dry. If you get something like this over here, okay, the glue is obviously dry. Dane has a time on it, 10/8/205. So that stuff can get unclamped and we can steal those clamps. In the meantime, if somebody else needs to get in here, then you don't have to do this. You don't have to move them. If you don't if nobody else is gonna clamp that day or whatever. But largely, if you're done and out of the way and you know that there's 2 or 3 people waiting to get on here, then lean them against this wall. When you start the next day, try to get in the habit of, oh, I need some clamps, so I'm just gonna unclamp. And then everybody's, whatever you took off can go down underneath this shelf here behind me. Sound good? Questions? Anything? Tomorrow I will show you what to do next. When you get this glue seeping out, I don't do anything with it usually. I leave it be, and then the next day I scrape it. Some people, I'll just give you a little tidbit. Some people would prefer to actually wipe this now. It's a horse apiece. Sometimes it's beneficial, sometimes it's not. It depends what I'm gluing, it depends what application it's gonna be. But right now, if I go and wipe this, a lot of times it's just gonna smear into my wood fibers anyway. And it's just gonna be kind of like a big glazed, like a varnished finish tomorrow. And that can be kind of a pain in the butt. Whereas if I leave this sit, and actually my ideal method is I'd leave this sit maybe 15 minutes, half hour, then I'd grab one of my glue scrapers and I hit this once it starts to like gum over, and then that scrapes off like nothing. And really, theoretically, if I can, after lunch today, I will try to unclamp this and then I'll scrape it quick before this stuff gets to be rock hard. Good deal? Drive safe.